Am I on? Yes. Hi. Welcome to Resi Studio. Week 4 of the intensive training. I won't say it was a little hardish. I think I have a mixed feelings on week 4 because it was the first time that I was diving to shader grade. But let's just jump to what week 4 was. So week 4, if I'm not mistaken, week 4, as you can see, it is a small task, meaning it doesn't fit on my recording screen. So yeah, it seems small, but it's not. We had 4 mini tasks for this week. We only needed to focus on tower upgrades, meaning we need to integrate the UI system in which I selected the tower, and then I will put it on the game scene. And once I select the tower, it will pop up 2 options that I had with the UI, either to dismantle a weapon or just to upgrade the weapon. And then we had to actually play around with blade animation to the enemy. And the culprit of this week for me was that we needed to actually add a dissolve shader to the mech once it dies. Let's go to the first mini test, in which was the UI connection. So I'm just gonna show you one of the tasks that we did in week 4, in which we needed to actually place the function UI. Now there are some stuff that I still need to put it in the game. If you can notice, I have the word fonts available. Let me show you the first one, the missile. I'm gonna put the missile in this here. So yeah, no more word fonts. Let me see what are my options here. I can either dismantle a weapon or just upgrade the weapon. I'm just gonna upgrade the weapon. As you can see here, word fonts. Now let me see if I can put this little thing here. I can't because I had no word fonts available. So this is one of the issues that are being acquired in the with implementing the UI. Sometimes, regardless of any weapons that I am putting on the scene, sometimes they activate the UI or they don't activate the UI. So I'm actually working on that little issue, but at least on basic implementation is actually working, so I'm actually happy about it. It actually makes sense. Once we finish with the UI, then we needed to jump. I'm gonna jump to the other ones. I'm gonna leave the last one, the shader grade. For me, it was one of the hardest tasks. And then we have the mech and the blending animation. So one of the other tasks of week 4 was to actually implement a firing action of the enemy towards the weapons, in which once he entered the collider of them, he has to rotate and actually shoot at them. So we need to blend 2 animations, the walking animation and the shooting animation. It was pretty easy to implement. I think it took me for at least a few minutes to implement, in which I have 2 animations. All of his animations are in one layer. So I have the base layer, in which he has the walking and the mech dying. In another layer, I have the shooting, in which I control the transition with a bull parameter, that once he's shooting, he's gonna start shooting, but at the same time, he's gonna start walking. So let me just put you a little preview here. He's walking. Once I shoot, it looks so clean and so cute. And now you will see what I think about shader grade, in which that I thought that I would take me at least 5 days. I think I'm being exaggerated, but at least a week. So have fun. I have never used Unity. I have used shader grade. I was scared at first because for me shader grade is exclusively for VXS artists, not something like moi. But I dive in. I understood a little bit, but I'm still very skeptical about it because there's some areas of artistic style or videoing, everything that I still need to actually comprehend. The whole point of the shader grade about this week is to actually create a dissolve material effects, in which once the enemy dies, then it has to dissolve. So let me show you here this. I have this little cube. It has the basic shader that I created, in which if he dies, then I have to actually get access to his float value inside this material shader and then just dissolve the enemy. So the whole point is once the enemy dies, he has this dissolve effect. Now, before diving into the actual dissolve effect, I needed to actually go to the Unity documentation because I have never ever used shader grid. Obviously, I never created my first. I never knew about properties. I never knew about the other stuff, about the nuts. I think okay. In simpler terms, this is called spaghetti. First, I created my first shader using Unity documentation, and this is my first shader grade, in which it's just a simple shader with a color property in which I can actually control the colors. So it's like a normal material, but I can actually play around with it. I still have no idea what the actual things about the shader means. All I did is that the dissolve is PBR. So I did a PBR shader grade, but I'm still working on it. Now, using the resources that was given to us, we actually needed to create the dissolve effect, in which I did. Until now, I was proud of using shader grade because I did this all by myself. Until now, I am happy with this. I am proud. I was feeling like a VFX expert until I noticed a particular something about shader grades. Shader grades need to be integrated inside a material. You need to actually create a material from the shader grade. So I actually did that. The issue that I did not know is that once you actually create the shader grade, you put it inside a game object. You cannot put two materials inside a game object and call it like any type of variable. It doesn't work like that. Materials are not like, how should I say this? Components that you can call on and off. No. So in a way, if you don't know how to use your materials, you can actually break your whole model. And that's a big no-no. If I wanted to actually put the dissolve effect on my enemy, somehow I needed to make my shader grade behave like a normal material of the mech, holding his own textures and everything, so that once he dies, I can have access to a float. Since again, I cannot access a second material to do the effects. It all have to be inside of one. That's when I noticed that my shader grade journey was still at the beginning phases. Another student that took the training in the past, he actually made a shader grade, which he contributed. He did this. This is what everyone on the shader grade community calls the spaghetti. He managed add every single property about the effect and then added the necessary properties to hold the texture, the base map and everything to the mech, that once I call for the float property of the dissolve effect, it affects the entire mech. It's like a I don't like you, I like you, but I don't like you. I don't know if you understand this whole situation about shader grade. So once he gave us the shader, the material, then we need to implement it. And then that's when I also noticed that you need to put all the renders and then implement the float. So that was actually week 4 task. Shader grade was one of those tasks that was like, I usually been telling you guys that the other weeks were very oofy, very hottish, but shader graph, okay, I think I'm over exaggerating when I say that shader graph is very difficult. The thing is that shader graph, it is something that you can actually say that it is one of those sections of game development that it has its own level, its own stuff, because it's for VFX. So there's a lot of stuff. In case for me that I'm not the artistic person, then it's very hard to actually know what's a base map, what's the albedo, what's the normal map, what the texture is like. So it's a very oofy for me, but at least I grasp the basic. I think if I see a few videos or few documentation, I can have a grasp on it. It's not like I'm gonna be a natural VFX, because obviously everything involves around textures and everything and images, but at least to have a grasp and be able to make my own effects. I think that's actually something that I'm willing to dive in more and actually play around with it. But at first, very daunting and spaghetti. So this was actually part of week 4. I still have some issues with the UI, like you may notice for week 4 testing training. I have almost an entire game. Just need to see how can I implement it to a AR and mobile. Even though I'm tired, I'm excited for week 5, and let's see how I can make this game development journey a full-time thing. Once again, thank you for hearing me out. Until the next one, have a lovely day.